ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל נהיה בדברו. A few days ago, we commemorated another anniversary, the 82nd anniversary of Kristallnacht. November 10th, 1938. 3,000 Jews were assassinated. Over 1,000 synagogues were burnt down. In addition, of course, hundreds, if not thousands, of storefronts, of Jewish storefronts were broken. Their glass was broken. And that's where you get the name of Kristallnacht, which means the night of the crystals, but it's really the destruction of crystals. Actually, they claimed that it was an answer to the assassination of a German diplomat. His name was von Rapp, and it was done by Herschel Greenspan, a Polish Jew, 3 days before that. Is that the reason why it happened? Could something like Kristallnacht have been organized in 2 days and 48 hours? No, this was organized way before. The assassination of Rapp was only an excuse in order to do something. And what was that based on? That was based on centuries, really, of hate of the Jewish people. The day after Kristallnacht, on the morning, a German officer came knocking to the door of my in-laws' apartment and said, "Jude Bernstein, raus." My mother-in-law didn't know what was going on. My father-in-law was taken away. She didn't know why. And this was in November 1938. We are talking about almost a year before the Second World War started. This is what happened in Germany. The excuse, as I said, was because of the assassination of the German diplomat, but this was planned from before. My mother-in-law went then to the employer of my late father-in-law and asked him to intervene. His name was Richard Ernst Moser, and his name is now among the righteous of the Second World War in Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. He wrote a letter to the Gestapo asking that my late father-in-law be released because he needed him to train a young German to occupy his place. And this is the way my late father-in-law was saved. And eventually his entire family left Germany. Fortunately, arrived in the United States in April, I believe, 1939, before the Second World War. We think that the Second World War and the Holocaust was, of course, the worst thing that happened to the Jewish people. There were many things that were happening before also. Kristallnacht, as I said, happened before. You know, the General Dwight Eisenhower, who led the forces of the Allies in the war against the German Axis, when he came to Europe and he saw what happened in those concentration camps, when he saw those living cadavers, these were people with just bones, with a little skin on top of them, with a lost look. He couldn't believe his eyes. And he ordered that they be filmed because he said, the world will not believe what we found today and we have seen with our own eyes. And then came the expression, when the world really learned, even though some people knew already what was going on, I have no doubt about it. I am sure that President Roosevelt knew exactly what was going on. And nevertheless, he didn't react the way he should have reacted. When the world learned what happened, the expression was never again. We will not permit ever again this to happen. How are you not going to permit it to happen when you had centuries really of anti-Semitism in the world? I keep on remembering, you know, the sentence, the expression of a statesman, a European statesman of the 19th century. And he said, you know what is an anti-Semite? He who hates Jews more than necessary. This feeling of anti-Semitism has been present for a long time. The late Jonathan Sachs said, you know, anti-Semitism is a virus, but it happens, you know, it changes, it mutes. you get a new version of it, but it's been around for a long time. Or as somebody else said, anti-Semitism is a very light sleeper. Any event wakes it up all over again. So after the Second World War, after that horror, the world said, never again. This cannot be permitted to happen again. And I think that the reason for the establishment of the State of Israel is first because of the presence of 600,000 Chalutzim, 600,000 Jews that had migrated to Palestine of those days, even though there had always been a presence of Jews in Palestine, but in the beginning of the 20th century, there was mass migration to it, so that in 1947, you had about 600,000 Jews. But it was also, I think, a sentiment of guilt of the world at large. Look at what happened. We have to give the Jews a chance to defend themselves, and they can defend themselves best in their own state. And I think this is a lesson that we Jews and non-Jews of the world have to learn. The importance of the State of Israel. It is the only guarantor for the continued existence of the Jewish people. Look at what the Jewish people has contributed to the world, to science, to advancement. I don't think there is any group in numbers comparable to the Jewish people that has contributed so much to the development of all of humanity. So that the State of Israel should be of interest of everyone, because you have to make sure that the Jewish people have continuity, because they have a right, like everybody else, to their own state. I'm not going to speak about political problems with other peoples, and so everybody has their rights, but certainly the Jewish people has a right, so that something like Kristallnacht, that officially started, so to speak, the persecution of Jews in the Second World War, even though there were laws already starting with 1933 when Hitler came to power that discriminated against Jews. And of course, the horrors of the Second World War really never repeat themselves. But we see that in Europe, some things are happening today. You see that cemeteries are being desecrated. You see that tombs are being destroyed. You see Jews assassinated because they're Jews. There is terror going on. It is not comparable, of course. We're not speaking of any Holocaust, but we should be aware. These are signs that anti-Semitism continues to be. And what is the answer to anti-Semitism? From the standpoint of the Jewish people, is the strengthening of the State of Israel, because that is the only real guarantor of the existence of the State of Israel and the defense of its rights.